So what lives with the players in the days after a brutal end of the season, be it an elimination final from a winning position or a preliminary final as red-hot favourites or a grand final that you live your whole life for and arrive only to leave on the wrong end of it? For Port Adelaide and Geelong, they're living this right now after brutal preliminary final defeats, but it comes in many forms. Eddie Betts, great to have you back on 360.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Jack Riewoldt, welcome.
It's pretty morbid start.
Yeah, so we're going dark first, and then we'll come to the light of the grand final. So you've lived this in various guises. What's it like when it ends so gruesomely as it did for those two teams?
Yeah, it is pretty tough. I mean, in 2017, from my personal experience playing against Jack's boys, you got 2 hours to hold that cup up, and didn't go as planned. And to be honest, I've never ever watched the game again. I've always thought, until you win one, that's when you'll get over it. But I don't think I'll ever get over it. And after we lost that, I stayed in the house for a week. Didn't want to leave, especially being in Adelaide, two-team town, was pretty tough. But yeah, it is pretty hard. Losing the grand final. Winning the prelim was like our grand final. I guess we had Geelong. Danger was coming back to Adelaide to play against his old side to get into a grand final, and we built that right up, and we won that game, and then basically that was our high, and then we got to the big stage and crumbled. So, and every time I see snippets like this, it does really hurt, and when it comes on Fox, and sorry Fox, but I actually change the channel when I don't watch Fox footy.
Put it Fox Sports.
He's got it on repeat probably, but yeah, it is pretty tough to come back from.
What did you ever get? So we'll do the individual shortly, but do you ever get used to it, or do you go, I know this feeling and it sucks?
Yeah, look, it even happens in I probably felt it this year a little bit towards the back end of the year when we sort of were around the mark to still make finals, but lost games like the Freo game late, even the West Coast game, and we lost that one late as well. But these are the football games and grand finals and big finals are arguably the biggest congregation of people in Australia at one point in time. But you go down in a game like that and you actually don't feel like you've never felt so more isolated than what it is. You feel lonely out in the middle. I can remember the Collingwood game. We'll talk about it a bit later, but just sat there and remember the last 5 minutes just going, how's this happened? Yeah. And you want for more time, but the siren puts you out of your misery, basically.
It's a shocking feeling. Do you find you use that, mate, as a competitor? So you make that reference to the 2018 prelim final, which was a shocking loss, a big upset. You use that as a driver then after that? Did it motivate you through the pre-season, or are you a type that just goes, no, that season's done, I'll move on to a new one?
Kane Lambert spoke about it after the 2018 loss at the BNF and spoke about the road to redemption and the year of redemption. So obviously coming back and winning again in 2019 was the redemption of 2018, but this year I felt like it's taken the soul of a few of the sides this year, just really sucked the life out of them, and I felt probably with us a little bit with that, like it was a long season, we had a long year last year, it sort of sucked our soul out a little bit, and I reckon that the two sides that lost on the weekend might fit into that boat as well. So Geelong, you think Geelong, they did the full stint last year, 120 days in the hub, the whole trip, same as us, and got beaten at the final post, which would have been really energy sapping for them, and then they've done it again this year. Had to go on the road again, but it's been a big 2 years for AFL, and they've been right to basically the knocker both times. So they're in a position where it certainly would hurt their players, but emotionally taking a big toll. And Port Adelaide have lost 2 home finals, 2 home prelim finals, being favourites probably in both of them, and that would have to take its toll.
When you think about the way that coaches handled it, leadership groups handled it, players individually and collectively handled it, is there a vital part to dealing with it either quickly or at some stage across the or when you first return, so that it doesn't? We were talking about the idea of, can it haunt a team? I
think it can, and for us, we got back and we dealt with it when we got back. When we lost it, we just moved on, didn't really deal with it, and then we get back, deal with it, got into pre-season. I guess, there was one stage there where at the end of pre-season, I think it was the last training session, we got together and we all got pretty emotional. We started talking about it, and some boys put their hand up and said, I'll let you down, and I made a mistake here. and it can really, haunt you for a while, and I think it will.
It's hard to confront. I remember in 2004, we're on the cusp of history when you're going for fourth premiership in a row, and I think I still think. People say to me, "Oh, geez, you're lucky you played in premierships," and I get to sit beside Nick on the couch and all that. But the grand final I think about the most, though, is the one we lost in 04. It haunt you. It absolutely haunts you. And maybe because the carrot that was dangling on the end of it, the potential to be arguably the greatest team of all time. But it certainly takes a long time to come out of it.
There's different grieving processes too, Brownie, as well, for individuals. Like some players just roll on and use it as motivation and drive themselves through. Some people just never return from it. And you have a poor game in a grand final. I mean, we saw the play on there with Gary Riewoldt and talking about him in finals. He's had a couple of poor finals, and that would play on his mind as a player. So I hope he gets the opportunity to get back and prove people wrong, prove doubters wrong. But I mean, it's a long way to come around 12 months again to try and get some redemption.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing as a player. And I think Chris referenced this the other night. Is you're sitting there and you lose his change rooms, whether it be in a prelim final, a final, or a grand final, and the thought strikes you. And you go, oh, jeez. All that running I have to do.
All that running.
All that space I have to do. All that good eating. I can't eat fish and chips on a Friday night. I can't have those extra
grilled fish. Grilled fish.
Yeah, but what about the $5 worth of chips that goes in
sweet potato fries, haven't you heard of those?
Yeah, no, it seems insurmountable at that time, Jerry.
Okay. Hey, Richmond have just told us that Trent Cotchin is standing down as captain. This won't be news to you, I'm sure. Three-time premiership skipper. He's led your club since he was 23 years of age in English as a 31-year-old.
Yeah, it's a long time as captain, and can be credited with the shift of the whole football club, along with the coach Damien Hardwick, arguably maybe the greatest captain of Richmond of all time, probably just behind Captain Blood, Jack Dyer, and just did everything right. And we don't lose him as a player. He's going to play on next year, obviously, which is super exciting. But I mean, the door opens for someone else to come in and fill what is really big shoes. But the timing, I think, is great for the fact that there's a few of the older crew who are going to be around for maybe 1, 2, 3 more years that can help the next person through. So it's not going to be sort of thrown to the wolves a little bit. And I mean, we've got a litany of blokes that could come in and pick up that role, and just excited to see who the boys think the next captain's going to be.
So did Trent share that with you all, or how's it played out behind the scenes at Tigerland?
I think he let the main group know today, but a few of the more senior players have known for maybe a week or so that was going to be the case. And it was. It's a sad moment, but also a big moment in terms of the step forward and the next step forward for our club. So whilst he'll lose the captain sort of logo next to his name, he'll still lead from the front, and it may free him up to become a bit of a different leader in different areas of the football club, which we're excited about as well.
So you've been his long-term deputy. Do you think it will go to a younger player who you will support, or would you volunteer for duty for a year?
This is where the lobbying starts, Jared. The lobbying starts tonight. Here we go. You got to first crack at it.
Leading the witness here. No, look, to be honest, I've always thought with leadership, I'm just at the beckoning call of what the club thinks. And no, I was nearly at a point at the start of this year that I thought maybe it was time for me to step aside as a vice captain to allow that next person to come through. But whilst there's only been, 2017 we had myself, Rancy and Trent, but for the last couple of years it's been sort of me and Trent as captain and vice captain. We've got a really big group under us. So when you look at Lynch, Grimes, they're sort of that next style of leader, but next group of leaders. Sorry, but do you go to them and you might get, say, 3 or 4 years out of those guys, or do you possibly go back to maybe not the 23-year-old, but maybe the kid that's 25, 26 that's shown signs that you think can push into the next sort of good chunk of leadership. So got plenty of guys we can choose from, which we're very lucky to have.
And why did Trent think the time was now? Did he share that with you?
No, I just think that naturally he sort of felt like it had run his course. As I mentioned off the top, the last 2 years have been really tough on players and players with families as well. So there's a burden that comes with that. But I think only he would know, I think internally, that he thought it'd come around where guys retire and they know they should retire and guys finish up as captain, because I think now's my time. So.
He doesn't want to go to the meetings, Jared.
He'll still be there, Brad. He cares too much to not turn up.
Yeah, absolutely, he does care. What about? What was the process of Richmond vote? Do you think it's a player vote? Do you think it would be a player vote, or how was it in the past?
I don't think it's as easy as a player vote in terms of just going, the players want to vote this person in, because sometimes players can have an idea of what they want as a leader, but there's so many great people around football clubs that have seen things that the playing group hasn't seen before in the past of the history, and they make that decision based on that. So it'll be a whole club decision. No doubt they'll come up with the right person.
So it's not a player vote?
It is a player vote, so certainly player votes, we vote as a part of it, but there's also the football admin and department would have a big say in it as well.
Eddie, how would you go with this grand final preparation, do you think, across 2 weeks? So no one's been asked to do it like before?
Yeah, I think it would be a bit tough, but, knowing that you're going to play in a grand final in 2 weeks' time, it may be a little bit hard with players over there that their families are back here in Victoria, knowing that they can't come and they can't spend time with them. Be a bit easier if players, like Cozzy, I see Cozzy's going out and seeing his family over there. But yeah, you just have to find some time and what to work on over there, because, you've got 2 weeks. I don't think this has never happened before, has it?
Is that a concern, the inactivity, especially for Melbourne? One game in 28 days. And yes, there's never been a week before the grand final, certainly not for both teams. They used to be in the old final series. But is that a concern, the inactivity? Because as much as you can do competitive match practice, it's not the real thing. Yeah,
I know, and it depends if they are doing that competitive match practice. And I know if that was me and I've just came off a prelim, I wouldn't mind just having an easy week building into the week after. But yeah, it is. It'll be pretty tough.
38 though.
That's always been for Brownie though. That's always been our ticker for, say, win week one of the finals. We would always have a solid hit out to replicate a match, whether it's only a half or three quarters.
Would it be contact?
Yeah, she was full tick.
Contact.
Yeah, full tick. Yeah. Maybe in the air, be a bit careful and safe. Yeah. But that's the beauty of this is that they've been able to take their whole lists away so they can replicate that, because there's no tier 2 competition at the moment. They've actually been able to replicate that, and a lot of sides have been playing against each other over the journey of this year. But Melbourne had a big hit out in between the weeks, and I think you just got to go back to the last game. They played really well on the weekend. They had a great hit out. The Bulldogs will do something similar. They'll have a decent hit out this week, and then it's a grand final. So I think they're in cherry ripe condition.
Did you ever clean up one of the boys in one of those match packs? Like, you ever kick 5 or 6 on Dylan Grimes or Rancy just to get your confidence
I'm glad
up?
you asked this, Brad. Gives me a chance to really talk about. One day I kicked 7 on Rancy in a practice game, and I baited him so bad that he pushed me over, and Matt Stevic was umpiring an intra-club practice game and gave away a free kick down the field. I think I might have kicked my 7th there, as you can imagine. I was absolutely riding him.
Good on you, mate.
Would you pull out a contest though? Like, say if the ball's in the air and you're going in.
I wouldn't.
Not if it was Mark of the Year.
No. Shea Bolton just sits on bloke's head, but I wouldn't go. In my latter years of my career, I've sort of shunned it a little bit. Like, oh yeah, I could have got that one game day. That's the we would have marked that one game day.
Good to see you, mate. Enjoy the week.
No, thanks,
Eddie Betts and Jack Riewoldt with us on 360 on Players' Nights.